is Whitney Ward, and welcome to Mountain Climbers, where I speak with people who have faced some pretty big mountains in their lives, but God has given them the strength to scale them. And for this episode, I have left Buckeye Country and crossed into Orange Country to my sister's house, but you will always be a Buckeye, right?
Yes.
Yes. So anyway, so this girl here was my first ever best friend. She still is, and I'm so excited that she has agreed to share her story, and it's a powerful one and one that most people don't know, and I'm very proud that my sister has decided to share her story of how she's battled anxiety, and I know you're going to be blessed by her words today. So sis, we're just going to dive right in. And the first question, yes, that's okay. We're, our mom, we cry. So. But looking back as a little girl, can you now see the signs of anxiety clearly?
Absolutely. I think as a kid, you don't know how to verbalize certain things, and there was a time, and now going through what I am now, when I look back and I can see there was a time where I'd go to school, and I'm talking like kindergarten, first grade. I'd go to school and I was quiet. Like, I was this bubbly little girl, and then all of a sudden my mom and dad, which I don't know that you remember, but where did my little girl go? Like, I would just sit and stare, and it got so bad to where mom and dad went and had a meeting with the administration, trying to figure out had something happened on the school bus, had what was going on, because the bubbly little girl that was bouncing around and doing gymnastics would sit and stare, and now looking back, I can see, I had severe separation anxiety as a kid from mom and dad, to the point there was a time, you Rubyville people, you're gonna remember Gussie Tackett, but Gussie had made me a little doll, and I slept with it every night, and when I would get up to go to school, Grandma would have to come over, and Mom and Grandma would each give it hugs and kisses, and I'd take it and I'd put it in my desk at school, and when I was feeling sad, I'd have to take Gussie out and take a hug or take a kiss just to make me feel like Mom or Grandma was with me. So I definitely, looking back, I can see anxiety was there as a kid.
Okay, so how did those signs remain, or did they change through your teenage years?
They definitely remained. I've always, and I first and foremost want to say, my faith is very important to me. But when I say being a worrier is something that I've battled my whole life, I feel like that really is contradictory or makes me a hypocrite. But I can remember always being a worrier, and to the point, I'm not going to get graphic, but it's something that a lot of people that deal with anxiety, they deal with irritable bowel, and that's something that's real, and don't giggle. But it was, it's something I've struggled with, and
I'm giggling in support, though.
Are you
I'm giggling in support.
It's to the point, I had a colonoscopy at 25, but I will say it's a quick way to lose 8 pounds, but in one night. But no, through high school, it was very real. I can remember, test anxiety is a real thing, and I know that there's people that deal with it. I was almost 4.0 student, National Honor Society, and I took the ACT 6 times, studied hard for it. I don't know many people that study for the ACT, and I couldn't get above a 19. It was just the anticipation, the pressure that I would put on myself, and I know a lot of people deal with that, but it was just one more thing that the anxiety was real.
Yeah, it's tough. So, do you ever remember a season where you didn't feel your anxiety?
No, I think it's definitely been more real at times and more just present, but there's always been a sense of where did I say the wrong thing? Did I analyzing conversations, or to the point, like, I think, you can be in a room full of people and you just get caught on this one thought and you're just sitting staring off into space because you're zoned in and you're overwhelmed and you're analyzing and it's over analyzing, like up above and beyond. And so it's definitely been times where it's been more I've been more aware of it, but I think it's something that's always been there.
Gotcha. Well, are there triggers that cause your anxiety to change? For instance, when you moved from home to Tennessee, did you notice more anxiety, or even moving from your apartment to this house?
Oh, this is a heavy one.
Can I giggle?
It's hard to believe I've been in Tennessee now. Goodness, January will make, well, actually February, will make 6 years, which really blows my mind. When I made the decision to move to Tennessee, it was not something that I took lightly. And when I didn't go looking for the job, it was offered to me. And, you know, when something's offered to you, my flesh would be like, no. You know, I'm a homebody. 4 years of college, I lived at home. I thought I'll just save money, can live with mom and dad, and I had never been really out on my own. So why would I move away? And but when this came along, I literally felt at a crossroad. Whereas if I stay in Ohio, I could completely miss what God has for my life in Tennessee. And if I go to Tennessee, I might miss completely what he has for me in Ohio. And it was really, really heavy. And I prayed hard for God to slam the door shut. And when I made the decision, we had come down and visited and looked at some apartments, and we went and visited Mike McCoy's church, and I made the decision that, well, we made it back to Ohio that night, and that night at Rubyville, Brian preached on Ephesians 3:20, how God will do exceedingly abundantly more than you ever think. And I went to the altar that night, and when I got up, I was scared to death, but I knew I had to go to Tennessee. And so, made the decision, made the move. And the thing is, even though I made the move to Tennessee, and I knew that's where God wanted me, there were dark years that followed. And looking back now, I can see how depression was there. We worked 4/10s, and there was times that I get off work on a Thursday and I may not have a real conversation besides maybe you all on the phone with someone until I got back to work on Monday. And I can remember times calling mom, sitting on the balcony of my apartment saying, just come get me. Because when I made the move to Tennessee, it was with the idea that if I wanted to move back to Ohio, that was possible. And there was a time probably, I moved in 2014, so 2015, like a year and a half into it. I think something like that. I was trying to move back, and it looked like everything was falling into place. And that's where I was, in my mind, Ohio was where I was supposed to be. And God slammed that door shut. And that was so hard. It was so hard because when I made that move, I didn't know anyone here.
Yeah.
I didn't have a friend base. So my friends are in Ohio going on about life. And I'm here, don't have friends, and don't have, home's 270 miles away, but days it felt like 1,000.
Yeah.
And so anyway, when the door was slammed shut in 2015 to come home, I really it almost just made me even more just down. I was a Linsay that you wouldn't know. And that's hard to swallow too, looking back on just being it'll suck the life out of you. And so anyway, I think that was a huge time in my life, and looking back, I can see just the transition, the growth I've had. But then I can say that we do serve a God of restoration, because I can remember my mom saying at times, she would be like, Linsay, you have a servant's heart, and God didn't send you to Tennessee not to serve. And yes, my degree's in communications, and I should be able to just talk to anybody, but my anxiety is real whenever I'm trying to insert myself into new situations. And I had found a church that I really I loved, and I felt I could grow there, but I didn't know how to insert myself into getting involved in some big church. And it's like, why would they need me? Why would they need me? But in reality, I needed it. And so about a year ago, I had just started, I got involved in a small group, and which, first of all, life makes a whole difference when you have people to do life with. But
and they're Christian, like-minded people.
Yes, and that's just huge. It's huge. But I went to go through the training to start serving at church, and I'm not meaning to get off topic, but I think this is huge into my story.
No, it's your story. I want you to tell it. I want to.
So I was there, and there's 4 weeks that you have to go through for training, and I think it was maybe week 2. And so recording the pastors on the screen. He says, here at Faith Promise Church, we want you to have an Ephesians 3:20 life, where God does exceedingly abundantly more. And it was in that moment that I realized, I think my jaw dropped, because I went back to Brian's sermon when I made the decision to move to Tennessee. And I was like, in that moment, God knew I needed confirmation that I was where I was supposed to be. And he was waiting on me to get out of my comfort zone, get out of my funk, and really kind of surrender and like let him, he was waiting to bring those Christian friends into my life, and he was waiting to have a church that I could call home. But it took Linsay being willing. And so and then you asked about the apartment.
But I actually want to go back real quick.
Okay.
I want to go back because something that you said triggered my memory. So first of all, you talked about the Ephesians 3:20 sermon that Brian preached. And you mentioned briefly Mike McCoy's. And I remember the hymn that they sang that day, that was another confirmation, was Trust and Obey. And so what I want to know is, when you had those dark times of depression and anxiety, did you cling to those promises that God had given you before? Or did you even have the mindset to do it?
I don't know that I had the mindset, but because I'm human, and I guess through this I gotta be vulnerable, but I was not. I wasn't in the place where I had really decided that Ohio was supposed to be where I was, and no one could really tell me otherwise. And so
I think that's good, because it conveys we are human, and we're gonna have human reactions. So I think that's good that you say that, so people know they might have seasons of that time like that, and it's okay. God's there whenever they're ready to get out of that funk, and
no one's perfect.
No one's perfect, and God will meet you where you're at. So my other thought I had, you mentioned about coming home and the job slammed in your face, but there was 2 other job opportunities, and one that was yours if you wanted it. And I remember this happened during church camp, and I was so proud of you, because so many people were telling you to take it, but you could not get peace on it. People did not understand that, but you stood your ground and said, this is not what God wants. I do not have peace on it. Looking back, how are you glad? I know you're glad, but if you would have had taken that job, what do you see that you would have missed?
Oh my. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sitting in my home.
And the woman behind the camera?
Shanae. I would have missed everything that God has for me. 100%. That job would have been a stay-at-home job. That's not me.
Yeah.
That's not me at all. I think now looking back, yes, I'd have been back in Ohio.
Yeah.
But I think it would have just made my depression worse.
Yeah.
Because that's not me. And again, running from what God has for you will never turn out good, you know? So, but it was always crazy. In our hometown of Rubyville, there's that cross up on the hill behind the church. And I remember when I was trying to make the decision about if I should take this job, it had been offered to me. I mean, literally me saying, it was a matter of me saying yes, and I was moving back to Ohio. And I was sitting up there, and there was another job I was really holding out for. And it was kind of like, it was just, every time I was about to say yes to the job that they'd offered me, the other job that I really wanted, they'd come back and be like, well, wait, we think we've almost got everything worked out.
Yeah.
And it was like, it was just, well, okay, I'm not going to say yes yet. And then it finally hit me. Every time that I've tried to go say yes so I can come home, the other job that isn't finalized is still hanging out there. And it ended up completely falling through after I said no to the job that was offered to me. But that was God. Like, God was protecting me from following or going against his will for my life.
And I think that's also good to bring out that sometimes people aren't going to understand your decision. Yeah. And you have to go on the peace that God's given you. And when you hold out for it, you get beauty from ashes and beautiful blessings. So I definitely think people need to hear that. But on to the next question. Do you feel there's a stigma or
Hold on.
Oh, you want to go back?
Well, we didn't cover the apartment to the house.
Well, you still want to talk about that?
About my house?
Oh, I thought we talked. Okay, go for it. Yeah.
No, I got one more story
Okay,
to tell.
Tell it.
There was a completely different anxiety from, well, there were completely different issues when I moved from
Oh my goodness,
Ohio.
right, because we were in Tennessee. I must have blocked that out because it was so crazy. We were in Tennessee when you had that house.
So, crazy thing is, back in January at our church, we do a fast. And one of the things that I was really praying about and seeking God about when I was fasting was, you know, I had struggled for the past 5 years on, okay, is Tennessee home? Is Ohio home? Where am I supposed to be? And it was like God said, maybe you should buy a home. Maybe you should think about that. Because I was like, wait, is that the biggest way I can say, God, I trust you? Is, you know, an apartment's easy to say, tomorrow I'm going back, I'm leaving. Like, I'm leaving town. But once I have a home, it just makes it a little more permanent. And so that was one thing that I really prayed about in January. And March, I got pre-approved. And this is actually the first house I came and looked at. And it just so happened that the
you fell in love with it.
I fell in love with it. And the evening that I looked at it, just so happened that you guys were coming down the very next day and could look at it before I made this decision. So what was really cool was on the way to look at the house, and I already knew, I think in my heart, that this was going to happen, but I was kind of trying to prepare them all. And on the way I said, you know, I would really love to get $320 for Ephesians 3:20 in the offer price somehow. I don't know if it'll work. So we got here, was going to do an offer, and it didn't work to put $320 in the offer price. And so I was signing the offer letter, and I signed, I dated, and then I don't know if this is common in every state, but in Tennessee you have to put the time that you're signing. And I said, does anyone have the time? And I was sitting right there. Yeah, and my realtor goes, honey, it's 3:20.
Are you going to do it with her twang?
I love her. It's 3:20. And so, even though, like, it was like one more thing that God was like, I have set out this land for you. Mm-hmm. It's the first house you looked at. You prayed and you fasted and you asked if this is what you were supposed to do. And I'm involved in this process because I wanted him in the process. If I wasn't supposed to be here, make the deal fall through. And so anyway, I'm here.
But there's a whole other side to that.
Yeah.
There's a song that I love called When I Lay My Isaac Down. And you had to actually walk away from this house, didn't you?
I did.
Yeah. And just trust that either it would work out or it wasn't meant to be. And what happened?
I walked away because I didn't feel like things were going smooth. I mean, they were smooth, but they weren't just... There was some hiccups, and I had said, God, if there's hiccups or this isn't going smooth and this is your way of saying don't do it, as hard as it would be, I'd walk away.
Yeah.
And I walked away, and 16 minutes later, I can look at the timestamp on my phone, and I got a text back saying, hold on, we can make this work. And so, it all fell into place.
You say you had to prepare Mom. I think the real person you had to prepare was Dad. Looking back.
And he still says the next time he moves me, he's moving me back to
Ohio. Exactly.
I think he knows that's not the case.
Yeah. That's definitely true. Okay, so next question. Do you feel there's a stigma or a negative connotation for a Christian to admit, hey, I struggle with anxiety or depression?
Absolutely. So, even though I knew God was in the process of, or involved in the process, and I was to buy this house, there's a lot of stress that comes with buying a house, and there's a lot of stress with it when you're doing it by yourself. And already having anxiety, it just came up on me. And from the time, beginning of April, that I signed the papers to Easter, which I think Easter was April 20th or 21st this year. That was on a Sunday. So 2 weeks after I was under contract on this house, I was in urgent care with my shingles around my face.
Yeah, it's close to your eye.
Yeah, and high blood pressure. It was like 147 over 107. Like, it was high. I had busted blood vessels in my eye, and I was just a hot mess. And but it was from there, this snowball effect that in the last 4 months I've had shingles 3 times around my eye, and I'm on blood pressure medicine now, and it's those situations. It's been hard to admit because my anxiety has been so real and so hard, but there is a stigma in the Christian world. I was struggling coming forward really and being vulnerable about it because I think I would claim verses like Isaiah 41:10. Yes, okay, I was having a moment. 41:10, and I would claim that thou shalt not fear is in the Bible 365 times, so I'm covered for every day of the year. And I would blare worship music in those moments of feeling overwhelmed. But I couldn't get past, I couldn't say I needed help. I couldn't say this is...
Because you were afraid people would question your faith.
Yeah, this is paralyzing, this is crippling. I'd lay in bed at night and just, my mind all over the place. I'd sit, I'd stare, and it was literally sucking the life out of me. And I think there was even a fear I put on myself that people would think I got in over my head in buying the house. Yeah. That wasn't it. But those were fears and things in my head that I can't admit that I'm having trouble right now because what are people going to think? And I think that there's just pressures when you put that pressure on yourself. And when you call yourself a Christian, people are going to look at you that you're weak. For needing help.
Yeah. I get it. So, what made you finally break that stigma and say, I need help, and that doesn't make me any less of a Christian?
Well, I didn't feel like that at first. I knew I needed help, but I didn't feel like I felt like a failure.
Yeah.
And I called, made an appointment, went and sat down with my nurse practitioner, who was just a godsend.
And she's a Christian, correct?
Yeah. And I sat down and I sat up across from her and I started crying. And I said, first of all, I feel like a failure for even being here. Mm-hmm. I said, the fact that I call myself a Christian and I'm sitting here and saying I can't do this anymore. I'd had my first panic attack. When the shingles broke out for the third time, the rash had broke out from my eye. And the fear and panic that it was going in my eye and I was going blind, whether that sounds realistic or not, it was real.
And I didn't help that, did I?
I don't remember what you did.
When I told you what could happen with shingles, not thinking anything about it.
Don't even. Yeah.
I know.
No,
sorry.
you didn't help my anxiety.
I didn't, yeah.
But I was sitting in the chair at the...
That wasn't intentional. I apologize.
I was sitting at the eye doctor and they had just taken my blood pressure. It was sky high. The shingles, my eyelid is hurting. It's burning. And I couldn't breathe. My chest was heavy. My fingers, they were drawing in. And I had my first panic attack. And when that happened, and I took a step back and I was like, I have this vicious cycle of keep breaking out in shingles. I'm now on this blood pressure medicine. I'm having a panic attack. God, I'm claiming your word. I'm singing worship hymns and I'm getting in your word. You know, I mean, I have my moments where I need to do better, but I was digging, and I feel like a failure. Mm-hmm. I feel like a failure that I'm not strong enough, and I can't overcome this. Yeah. And when my nurse practitioner, and I shared all that with her, and she said, I'm first going to tell you that your faith is intact.
You need to hear that.
I needed to hear it, because I knew that I couldn't go on like this, and it was paralyzing me and crippling me, and my color out of my life was just gone. But I needed to hear that, and so she told me a few things, and she said, "You've had your first panic attack. Everything you're dealing with sounds like you've been dealing with it for a long time, but you're not weak for needing medication. Yeah, you're not." And so.
And I think what people in the Christian world need to understand, that there is a line between true anxiety and
just fear and worry.
Well, and like an attack from the enemy.
Yeah.
There's that line, and when you're dealing with true anxiety,
it's a chemical imbalance.
It's a chemical imbalance, and you need help.
Yeah.
And so, okay, you kind of touched on it a little bit, but how did you feel after you admitted that, you know, I need help, and what steps did you take after you admitted that?
So, when I went and met with her, my nurse practitioner, she said, you know, there are people that have to be on medication for the rest of their life. Mm-hmm. She said, but the goal is not to. No. And she said there's key things that you can do to help you through this journey. Mm-hmm. And I already felt like a failure going in there, and it was just like it hit me. Okay, what can I do as a Christian to do my part through this process? And it was, I got to do everything that she's telling me. Mm-hmm. Yep. And it's exercise, and it's trying to get 8 hours of sleep a night, and it's eating right. But there was a key part to all this, and that was counseling. Yeah. And I've really been trying to educate myself, because I do feel like as a Christian it's my responsibility to educate myself and to not use this medication as a crutch. I could easily say, you know what, I gotta be on this medicine now for the rest of my life, but I'm not gonna allow myself, you know, I don't know how long I'll have to be on it. Yeah. But I'm willing to do everything in my power to overcome this and get myself in a good mindset. Yeah. And so I've met with the counselor, and she's a biblical counselor. They offer it at my doctor's office, and I've had one session, and I know it's going to take time, but just I'm trying to do this in a healthy way, and I feel like there's a Christian way to go about it. and I'm trying to do that.
I think that's great. That's what a lot of people need to hear. You know, medication is not an easy fix, and you just don't do your part. No matter if it's, you know, like the chemical imbalance or if it's physical, we all have to do our part. Can you tell a difference? Have you seen, or you think it's going to take a while?
You know, it's funny because I had a follow-up with my nurse practitioner this week, and she's like, "How are you doing?" And I said, "Calm is a strong word." I mean, I can tell it's helping. I don't feel, I still have my moments of like, I guess you'll call it panic.
Yeah.
But I'm able to take a deep breath and really try to think through.
Yeah.
And things don't seem so paralyzing.
Yes.
So I know it's going to be a process.
Yeah.
But it's helping.
Yeah.
And I've had support, and I've needed that through this.
Well, tell people about your confirmation that God gave you that just showed you, yes, I am handling this the right way, and God's blessing this.
So one thing that my counselor had asked me to do, she gave me homework, and the homework was basically getting in God's Word. And every morning she has me reading Matthew 6:25-34 and Psalm 46. And the other day, I think it was Thursday, I was scrolling through Facebook, and I follow Women of Faith. And it basically said, let go and let God, or something like that, or let it go, or God's got this. I don't remember. But in the caption above it, the two scriptures it referenced specifically was Matthew 6:25-34 and Psalm 6. And this was 2 days after I had just met with her, and I was like, okay, God, like, it's just it's the little confirmations that He gives you, and the fact that He cares about the little details of your life to confirm, and when He knows you're struggling, to give those affirmations that you're doing what you're supposed to do, and that's just, He's a loving God.
Yeah. So looking back from, you know, when this really all started, I know it started like when you were a little girl, but when you keyed in to what was going on, it was, what would you say, spring, beginning of summer?
I mean, I have felt like there's been anxiety there, but for a long time, I've just not.
You haven't put a name to it.
I've not put a name to it because I was afraid of failure, and I was afraid of, to be honest, I was afraid of medication. Yeah.
So when you finally put a name to it, you know, and then going to your, you know, nurse practitioner, your counselor, to now, how relieved are you that you've made these steps?
I'm relieved in the sense of I finally feel like I'm on a personal journey to make Linsay better, and to get Linsay in a place where it's just going to set her up for being a healthier Linsay down the road.
Yeah.
And that's healthier from a spiritual standpoint, mentally, physically, emotionally, like everything.
Yeah.
But I know I have to go through what I'm going through now to be the best version of me that I can be.
Because, you know, sometimes the answers aren't easy, but when you have a path, that is a relief. And I think that's, you know, where you're at. So since you're at that point with the relief, okay, like, it's not going to be easy, but I know what to do, what message do you have for people who maybe know they have anxiety, but haven't had the courage to speak up, or maybe they have and they haven't gone to counseling? What message of hope do you have for them?
Well, I first want to share an article that was sent to me this week, and it kind of just sums up, it's written, I think, very well, and it sums up this. I could have written this. But it says, "For the longest time, I didn't know what anxiety was. I thought everyone felt this way. I assumed everyone overthought every detail and rehearsed conversations in their head, and stayed awake at night completely unable to turn off their brain. I was sure the simple things made everyone nervous, and the worst case scenarios were the first things everyone brought to mind. I thought everyone had moments of panic so intense they had to sit down, and that the everyday stresses of life were really just that, overwhelming. Real life is hard, I thought. This is just what it feels like to have responsibility, I would say. It never occurred to me that not everyone was living this way. I use the word anxiety the way people use the word literally, mostly for emphasis, not really meaning what the word implies. I talked to my people, but anxiety didn't go away. I talked to God, but anxiety didn't go away. I begged and pleaded and prayed. I read the Bible verses about casting all your worries on God, and I read articles about ways to cope with stress, but anxiety didn't go away. Sure, those things helped some, but it was always there, taking up space in my mind and stealing the color from my life. But one day I talked to my doctor. Adrenaline is great when you're trying to outrun a bear, she said. But when you have anxiety, your brain sends that same amount of adrenaline out when you are just driving your car or sitting at your desk. So now, I take this pill every night. I still pray and talk and read too. The only difference is I stopped thinking that anxiety was something I could outperform, something I could beat. There's a misconception surrounding anxiety in our culture. We've minimized the reality of anxiety while simultaneously elevating busyness. Anxiety has almost become the evidence of achievement. But at the same time, if you're anxious, you should probably just calm down. Somewhere along the way, we've forgotten that true anxiety is a mental health disorder, not a badge of honor, not a weakness, and not something you can just get over. I've heard people say we're living in the age of anxiety and that we're an anxious people. Maybe it's always been this way, or maybe the socially indulgent, performance-obsessed, never take a day off culture we've created really has changed the landscape of our mental health as a people. I don't know, but I know it's real. And I know that mental illness doesn't care if you're spiritual or religious, young or old, blessed or struggling, or if you have a good reason to even be worried. Keep finding ways to manage your stress, but if you need the medicine, you're not weak. Because only the strongest people will admit they need some help. And I think the message that I have for people is you're not weak if you need help. Because I have, the last month and a half, I have beat myself up. Especially, it didn't even occur to me, and you said it to me, and you did not do it in a malicious way or mean way, but when I was realizing I needed help and I needed to go talk to my nurse practitioner, you said, Linsay, people downplay mental health, mental illness these days, and I'm like, oh my word, like anxiety is a mental illness, and that I felt like an even more of a failure to word it like that. But when I realized, you know what, I can keep putting shame on myself and guilt on myself, or I can share my story and try to encourage someone to find help. And anxiety and depression go hand in hand, and I'm in a good place. I don't feel at all depressed, but there are a lot of people who deal with anxiety who are depressed. And September is National Suicide Prevention Month, and I'm just gonna say, whether you're dealing with depression or anxiety or both, you are not weak for seeking out help. And there are people that love you, and there are people that care for you, and there is help, and there's love, and there's encouragement on the other side of admitting it. And I just encourage people to, if you have questions, or if you have more questions about my story or how I'm feeling, or how I got over the worries of people looking down on me, reach out, and I'll try to give some insight, because it was given to me when I needed it. And so I'm not perfect. I'm still going through this. It's very fresh. I feel very vulnerable right now, but I think in this day and age, we try to put on this facade that we've got it all together, and we don't want to look weak. We don't want to look like we have weaknesses and mess ups. And I think that sometimes we just need to be real. And I think that people just need to take down, you don't know what people are hiding behind that smile, because you can put on a smile and try to fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
So just, I'm here if anyone needs to reach out, or can't get over, some of the things that they're dealing with.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. You're definitely one of my heroes, and I look up to you, and you're such an inspiration. And just like Linsay said, if you do need help, just reach out and get it. Talk to your pastors. They probably know of a Christian counselor. talk to anyone to get that help that you need, even if it's just a friend, so they can give you that push to get the help that you need. And yeah, just don't be afraid. Just go out there and live your best life and shine for God. And if that means you need help, like she said, you're not weak. So thank you again.
Thank you.
And remember, when your strength comes from the right source, there's not a mountain you can't climb.